Hi everyone,
Hello, hello.
and welcome to week 2 of Shiatsu, the spiritual level. Really looking forward to this week. I'll give you an overview. I've got Dinah and Nicola with me again, and we've got Shakura in the chat. So if you'd just like to say hi, where you're from, it's always lovely to see where you're from and find out where you are. We've got a nice full program for you in the next hour. We hope you're going to find it really interesting. I'm just going to go through the slides, and first of all, before we do anything else, let's find out how many of you were here last week for the live webinar, or whether you watched the recording, or whether you missed it, and then we can find out how to pitch the review, which we're going to do in a minute. Okay, so I'm just going to share the poll now, and let's just find out whether you were here last week, whether you missed it, or whether you watched the recording.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, yeah, most of you were here for the live webinar. That's fantastic. Or you watched the recording.
Yeah, welcome back then.
Yeah,
Great.
If you missed week 1, then just get in touch with Shakura's set up the online course now on newenergywork.com, so you can go and have a look at the recording. It's all there waiting for you if you want to go back to that week, and you can get the PDFs and all the rest of it, so you can catch up. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that. And let's just go on to the next slide. Right, so just a little bit of a review. We've got these 5 weeks. We're going to have the first half an hour or so is a different aspect of working on the spiritual level. And then what we're doing in the second half of each 1 hour webinar is we are going to explore one of the Shens, the 5 Shens, which make up the big Shen, or the big spiritual level. So last week we looked at the Po, we experienced the Po, and this week later on we're going to be exploring the Yi, and then week 3 we'll be doing the Shen, then the Z, or the Z, it should be pronounced, week 4, and then week 5 we'll be looking at the Hun. Okay, so let's just quickly review last week. We did the introductions. Nicola did a whole session on how to experience the different levels, really worth reviewing if you missed that. We also looked at basic techniques for structuring the spiritual level information, and we looked at links between the aura and the meridians. And then I did a session on the Po, and we looked at the Po-Hun duality. So that's what we did last week. And this week, what we're going to do is, the first half an hour, we're going to do some scanning of our own energy on all 4 levels to put the spiritual level in context. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out whether you what techniques you already use for tuning on to the spiritual level. And then we'll go through a technique quite slowly and methodically, and I'm going to give you some homework so you can try it out and report back next week. We thought that would be quite a fun thing for you to do. And then at past, Dinah's going to take over, and Dinah's prepared an exploration of the Yi, which is the earth element spiritual level, and so that we can get in touch with that and work our way through all the different 5 Shens. So really looking forward to that. Okay, so let's get straight into it, and we're going to tune into our own key on 4 levels. I'm just going to give you this thing. If you've got some paper, run and go and get some paper if you've got any nearby. Okay, and we're going to just draw a grid like that. So it looks like that. It's very easy to do. Just draw 2 lines, and then we've got PEMS, physical, emotional, mind level, and the spiritual level. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to join with you, and we're all going to scan into the 4 levels of our own energy as a preparation for the next stage of the webinar. Okay, so I'm just going to come back a little bit, and if you'd like to join me in doing this exercise. Okay, so we're going to just close our eyes, and we're going to focus in on different levels of our energy. Now, you can do this standing up or sitting down, whatever you prefer. And in about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll have a drawing or writing of all our 4 different levels of our own energy. Okay, you may have done this exercise before. It's always a great one to revisit, and it's always interesting to find out some information about our energy. Okay, so let's go. So first of all, are you sitting comfortably, sitting or standing comfortably? And we're going to just close our eyes, and we're going to scan through our whole body on the physical level. So I'm going down through my head, the jaw, through the neck and throat, through the shoulders and the chest, down my arms, and then through into my diaphragm, down into my hips, and then down all that way down to my feet. Very good. Okay, so now just relax and scan back through all that information and feelings that you've got from doing this exercise. And now if you could draw a picture of your physical level of your energy, what would it look like? So just spend a moment kind of making it into an image. Any words maybe that come into your mind? Okay, and then we're going to open our eyes and we're going to draw it in the first box. Okay, I've got a few things going on, so I'm just going to draw those. Okay, you can always write some words in as well if you want to just remember some of the feelings that you've got in your physical body. I'm going to put a couple of words in here. We got it? Okay, excellent, great. So there we are, we've got a record of our physical level of our energy. So we're going to shift up, we're going to go through two more levels until we get to the spiritual level, which is where we're aiming for, but we're kind of putting it into context. We're putting it in comparison to the other levels. Are you with me? Okay, so let's go. Close our eyes again. And now we're shifting up onto the emotional level. So if you just like to tune into how you're feeling emotionally, you may want to scan again down through your whole body, or you may just get a movement or a feeling by just tuning into your whole body. So let's just stay with that for a moment. Okay, got it? Okay, so now if you had to turn that into an image, you were to turn that experience of what your emotional body is like into a drawing, what would it be like? Okay, and then we're going to draw that into the second box. Okay, excellent. Got that one? Okay, very good. So now we've got 2 more to go. One more before we get to the spiritual level. So now we're going on to the mental level or the mind level, and we're going to just tune into our thoughts on the psychological level and see what we get. So I'm closing my eyes again. Maybe you'd like to join me in this, just relaxing, closing my eyes. I'm tuning in on my thought level, but I'm also experiencing that in my whole body energy as well. So what's it like? What's your mental, mind or thought level like? Okay, Very good. So if you had to turn that into a picture, what would it be like? And we're going to draw that in the third box. Okay, so okay, and again, you can write in, we can write in any words that we that might help us remember what it was like. Okay, very good. So finally, we get to the spiritual level. So can't wait for that, see what's going to happen. So again, we're sitting comfortably and relaxing. And now we're going to tune in onto the spiritual level, whatever that means for us, okay? So we're going to tune in on the spiritual level. You may want to scan down again. If you do, I'd recommend you go slightly outside of the body in case there's anything out in the auric field. Otherwise, just tune in on the spiritual level and see what kind of information you get. Okay, now if you had to turn that into a drawing or a picture, what would it be like? Okay, so we're going to do that now. Okay. Okay, excellent. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. And maybe you'd like to have a look at my drawings. Okay, look, here's my 4 drawings there. You can see I definitely need a shiatsu treatment. And I imagine you probably got something similar, some kind of different images when you drew your 4 pictures. So if you'd like to share any of your information in the chat, maybe just pick one of the levels that you felt was the strongest or the one that was most interesting. And then you could maybe just share that in the chat. I'll have a quick look in the chat and see what happens. Let's have a look at yours, Nicola. I'm just going to turn my...
Something like that.
Very good. All right. Rather similar to mine in many ways.
Shiatsu.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, so that's an example of a whole body scan on ourselves. And you can see that, in fact, we've got 4 definitely distinct layers of energy, layers of information in our energy, okay? So the challenge now is to develop a technique that allows us to do that with our clients. In other words, to be able to tune into their energy. Okay, there's some good information coming in from Emma and Biggie here. Carol, you got the same as me. I feel for you. Interesting. That's interesting. Very interesting images. And also this, Emma, that difference between the top and the bottom half is something that you often will get when you do scans on your clients, and it gives you a really good way of focusing in on what you want to achieve. Okay, so now the next up is developing a technique for tuning into the spiritual level on the Hara. Okay, this is we've scanned into our own energy as a whole. So now it's time to develop a technique to work on our clients. Okay, so before we look at that, maybe what I thought I'd ask you is, do you already have a method for tuning into the spiritual level on the Hara? Yes, no, or not sure. I just thought that would be a really good one. And thank you for all the chat messages. Some really interesting stuff going on there. Here we go. I'm going to share it here. Do you already have a method for tuning in on the spiritual level? Hara, if you've done some workshops with me, you probably have already developed some methods.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Quite the most popular one is not sure.
Yeah.
So you might be doing it, but you don't know what it is. That's definitely a possibility.
It's probably true, because if they're here, they probably are doing it already.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
And I like the chat. I liked in the chat the thing about the rainbows, spiritual rainbows.
Very nice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay. So now the next question then is, what if you have got a method? This is the third of you who said they have got a method. What methods do you use? So I'm just going to spend a minute just having a look at the chat. You can just type in a few words about what methods you already use to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use those as a basis for working on a technique that we can all share. Okay, so we've got intuitive scanning, sounds using the different levels from the vibrational levels class, Qigong practices, meditation, sound, alignment. Very good. We've got any more? Quantum healing techniques, intention or mindset. There we go. Breathing, meditation, opening up the awareness or the conscience, chakra work. Very good. And mindset, intention, opening up peripheral vision. Very good. Okay, so there's quite a few different ideas there. Telepathic dialogue. Yeah, okay. Trusting, opening and waiting, intuitive scanning. A lot of it's mindset and coming from Qigong practice. Very interesting. Very good. Hovering the hand. That's an interesting one. Working away from the body. Relaxation and alignment. Okay, excellent. So I've already prepared some slides of some of the ideas, okay, which is mindset. That's one of the most popular ones, or focusing the attention. Using the sounds to activate different dantians or different chakras. We can even use colors if you're familiar with the colors. The dantians is a popular one because you've got the physical, emotional and mental levels of the 3 dantians, and then we've got the spiritual level going up. Okay, so okay, good. You go up through the levels, Rachel. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, excellent. So for those of you that don't have a technique, or you're not sure, what I thought we'd do is we would actually do an exercise right now. And if you've got someone to work with, that's really great. If you haven't, don't worry, because I haven't, and I'm going to be using a pillow. And what we're going to do is we're just going to work on our technique for the next 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. So we're not interested so much on what we're picking up. We're more interested in how we tune our own energy field. Once we've done that, that means everyone here, the 2/3 of you who are not sure or haven't got anything yet, will have a concrete technique you can use. And maybe those of you who've got something might want to change it or add to it, okay? And then what I'd like you to do over the next week, if you do a distance session or if you do a face-to-face session, depending on whether you're in full lockdown, I'd just like you to try out this technique and then come back next week and then we'll find out how you've done with the poll, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now just demonstrate the technique, and I'd like you to follow through with me. I'm going to use a pillow, so if you can use a pillow on yourself if you like. I'm just going to adjust my camera down slightly so that you can see me on the mat. Okay, so here we go. All you need to do is find a comfortable place to sit, and I'm going to use this pillow as my Hara, just as a model. If you've got a human being near you, like a partner, then you can have a model and that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to palpate this imaginary Hara on the physical level and on the spiritual level. And what I'd like you to do is experience the difference inside your own energy field, because this is the way we train ourselves in order to be able to differentiate different types of energy information on the Hara, okay? And then I've got a few slides after that to kind of explain how that information can be processed, okay? So are you ready? Okay, so first of all, this first exercise is really useful because basically we want to make sure that we know what our energy is like, because we want to know for sure, as much as we can, that when we pick up the information from our client, that information is not our information that we're picking up. And that can be harder than, that can be quite a difficult thing sometimes, because especially if we've got a lot going on in our own energy, it's kind of difficult to feel anything with the client. So the first thing we need to do is we need to tune into our own energy and calm everything down so that our energy is quieter than the energy of our receiver. Okay, so we're going to do that first of all on the physical level, okay, and then we'll do it onto the spiritual level. And what we'll do is we'll palpate an imaginary Hara, and we'll see if we can feel an internal difference between in the way that we connect, even with a pillow, an inanimate object. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so first of all, let's sit comfortably, and we're going to basically relax by imagining this thread connecting with the top of the head, floating up, and the sacrum hanging down. We're going to relax our shoulders, relaxing all the joints down the arms, relaxing and opening the whole rib cage, front and back. Okay, and now I'm relaxing the hips all the way down into the feet. Okay, so we're scanning through our physical body and we're releasing and relaxing any obstructions or any blockages in our physical body. Okay, got it? So now we're going to go on to the spiritual level. Remember that from this drawing here. We're going to try and get it as clear as we can and as balanced as we can. And you remember some of us had too much energy in the top. So we're going to try and get the whole thing as even as we can, as quiet as we can. So again, going through the alignment technique, floating our head up, relaxing our sacrum down, releasing the body, tuning up onto the spiritual level, and then just taking a few breaths to calm that level down and make it as clear as we can. Okay, very good. So that's the preparation. Now, of course, you can do that for all the levels as well, but we're going to do just the physical and the spiritual level today, just to see if we can get a contrast in the feeling as we palpate. Okay, now some of you were using the dantian, you were using sounds, you were using intention. So let's just combine a few of those. We're going to bring our attention down into the lower dantian, which is related to the physical level. So we're going to bring our focus down into here. Okay. We're going to use our intention to tune our own energy onto the physical level. Okay. And now we're going to just lift our hand up, connecting with the dantian, and we're going to tune into the connection with our partner's Hara on the physical level. Okay, now just for practice, I want you to imagine that you've got a client here or a receiver here, and we're going to palpate on the physical level. We're going to keep the attention here. We're going to use the intention of working on the physical level. I'm just going to work through the Hara routine. You can use whichever routine you use. Okay. And I'd just like you to experience the quality of your connection with this pillow or with your receiver. What's it like? What kind of density is there in the connection between your fingertips and the pillow? Okay, we're just going to remember that, and we're going to tune up onto the spiritual level. So the idea now is we're going to raise our resonance up, the levels, and we'll re-scan again, re-palpate the Hara again, and see if we can feel a difference in the type of contact that we have even with a pillow. Okay, so we're working internally with our technique in preparation for this week when we can try it on a client. Okay, so here we go. What I'm doing now is I'm going into the alignment. This time I'm shifting my awareness up from the lower dantian up through into the crown chakra, which represents the spiritual connection, and I'm imagining my body energy extending out like in a kind of like an egg, just like this picture I drew here with the spiritual level. Okay, so I'm trying to get it a little bit quieter and a little bit more even. Okay, so let's just take a few breaths. Okay, we're going to resonate our whole energy field on the spiritual level. Okay, and now we want to keep the body movement as smooth as we can, keeping it really relaxed. Okay, keeping it really open, keeping our whole energy field resonating on the spiritual level like this. Okay, and then we're going to palpate again. Now notice the difference in the feeling of how the density of the touch with the pillow. Just going around the routine, renewing this alignment all the time. Okay, now if you can remember back to what it was like when we tuned down onto the physical level and opened up onto the spiritual level, and just see if you can get a difference, a feeling of a difference between how the texture of the touch felt. Okay, and I'm going to run a poll in a minute and find out if that was a successful exercise. So let's have a look. Put the slides back up. Okay, so we practice this technique, okay, and that the idea is to report back next week trying it on a client. And we've got, this is the method that we did. We aligned and centered, we quietened the level in ourselves, we used whichever method we're used to, and we did a palpation. I'm going to run a poll. I'm going to just flick back to another, I'm just going to find out whether you felt a difference in your technique. Did you feel a difference in the actual texture of the connection? Let's see.
That looks like a pretty good yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. If you didn't feel a difference, it might be worth just experimenting with the best method for you. And there's a lot of different methods that you can use there. And if you're not sure, I just recommend that you practice it. And also the other interesting thing is you'll probably get a much more dramatic experience if you're working on a human being rather than the pillow, because you're going to get more of a change in information. I just want to go back to this slide here though. And this is an important slide because basically all those different methods that everyone shared with us in the chat, they all have the same function. And what that function is it basically structures our somatic empathy information. So in other words, what happens is we get information from Hara Diagnosis or scanning, whatever it is, through a process of somatic empathy by focusing our attention on a receiver and getting that information. And what we need is we just basically need a method to do that. And so the Hara Diagnosis is basically a kind of a ritualized way that we connect with our receivers. And this is a question for you, which is this, which is why is it that different maps work, even though some of them are very different in the way they're laid out? And the reason for that is because the location of the zone is not 100% important. And it particularly, the higher up we go through the vibrational levels, the non-local the information is, okay? Now, if you think about that, if you think, for example, I'll give you an example. If you think about, say, the large intestine. Say someone's got diverticular disease, they've got an inflamed large intestine. You put your hand over that large intestine organ or the diagnostic area in the Masnaga system, you can feel the heat coming away from the body, and that's the inflammation of the internal organ. So in that particular instance, the three-dimensional location of the area is important. But as we go up through the vibrational levels and we think about the Po is a spiritual level thing, and it's in every cell, like Nicola was talking about last week. It's in every cell. So what we're doing when we're palpating on higher levels is we're basically using a ritual to structure that information which is not locally contained. And that's why different methods, different systems can still work, because the location of the zone is not 100% important. Okay, so this kind of key, this is this is like a key point, K-I and K-E-Y, a key thing. The less physical the information that we're tuning into, the less important the location of the Hara zone is. And I'm sure many of you who are more advanced practitioners, judging by what you were putting in the chat, is that you can even just sit next to the person and think of the energy field, and you'll get information on the meridians, or you can just think around the Hara. It's not really important to physically locate the areas, because you've transcended that three-dimensional form in terms of the information. But for those of us who are just starting our steps and we're starting to develop our energy awareness, these structures are really important because they're ritualized forms that if we surrender into and we allow ourselves to free up our abilities to tune in, then it provides a structure for the information to come in. Okay, phew, there we are. Okay, great. Let's just see if there's any questions. Let's have a look. I just have to say at this point, by the way, that there is an entire online course on new energy work, which is now completely free to access from vibrational levels. So if you want to visit more of this information in depth, there's a full 45-hour online course that you can dip into. It's completely free, and it's full of resources that will help you if you want to deepen your practice in all the different levels. I'm just going to answer Marilyn's. Hi, Dinah. Just answer Marilyn's question. She missed the difference between the dantians. Okay, the lower dantian relates to the physical. The middle is for the emotional level, and this is the mind level. And I know, Nicola, you tend to use this as an access to the spiritual as well, don't you?
Yeah. In Qigong, they talk about the three dantian as like the lower dantian is the physical, the middle dantian relates to qi or ki, and it's emotional, but it's the whole of your energy field, any of the sort of contactable energy. And the mind level, it connects your upper dantian connects to the Shen level. Right. So in a way, it's sort of bringing the Shen into consciousness. So there's that mind and spirit.
Yeah. So you can do it like that. The way I tend to do it, because I have 4 levels, I need 4 centers, is I tend to go physical, emotional, mental, and then spiritual level I use the crown chakra. But again, it's not 100% important where they are. It's more a way of focusing a mindset. Okay, enough of me. Yeah, go on, Nicola.
Just say exactly what you were just talking about. If you have a mental trigger that you keep the same each time, so for me, it's upper dantian connects to the Shens.
Yeah.
And that's my trigger, and that's what I think about. You've got a slightly different one, but if you keep it as your own, it works.
Of course, yeah, that's right.
You go, oh, I don't know what to do. You don't know what to get.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway,
that focuses your energy. Anyway, enough of us and more. Now we can go over to Dinah.
Yes, I was just going to refer back to the last week, remembering that these levels are actually not really there. It's a continuum. It's a rainbow, exactly. Yeah. And really, we're just choosing where we put our focus, and whatever method works for you to
absolutely
take you up and out.
But hopefully the 2/3 of you that weren't sure or didn't have a method will now have got some structure that you can start to play around with and develop it. And if you need more guidance, just go to the online vibrational levels course. It's very, very comprehensive. Okay, so here we go. Here's a poll leading up to Dinah's session.
Yes.
How would you rate your understanding of the Yi?
Yeehaw!
No idea. I don't know what it is. Actually, I have to say, Don, I'm really looking forward to a session because I think probably of all the Shens, this is the one that I found the most difficult to tune into. And as we know from somatic empathy, we need to have an experience of these levels so that we can actually experience them in our clients. That's the important thing.
Yes, and there is a very obvious reason, which we'll look at in a moment, as to why it's not an obvious form of spirit.
Okay.
So what have we got?
Great.
4 people, very good. Good, neutral, and a third of people not familiar with the Yi. So thanks very much for voting, everyone. And interesting. So I can move these slides, can't I? So the Yi. One of the reasons why I think it's hard for us to access is because it's usually translated as thought or intellect. And obviously we tend to connect that with the mind and with, sorry, Nicola, the mental level, the level of the mind. So in fact, and if you look in classical Chinese medicine textbooks, you'll see that it's associated with study and with focus and with concentration and with memory. But interestingly, it has the Chinese character actually has 2 radicals. One means verbally expressed thoughts, and one means heart-mind. And that, therefore, that heart-mind is a connection to our higher self, if you like. And the value of the Yi is that it has a quality of intention. It's that we put our heart-mind into our thoughts, and that heart-mind connects to the higher self. And so you'll see I've put in bold at the bottom here, its spiritual capacity serves our higher purpose. And later on, we'll look at another way of conceiving of it rather than thought and intellect. But first of all, I want to just very quickly, because time is flying, just remind ourselves, where is the Yi housed? It's housed in the spleen. And I just wanted to remind you of a few aspects of the earth element. The spleen and stomach are the earth element meridians. So we're thinking about earth. We're thinking about roots into the earth. We're thinking about nurture and nourishment and food. And here's an image of a cooking pot. And the stomach is like the cooking pot that takes in food. We put the food in, it goes down, and the job of the spleen is transformation. And that's a really important thing to remember. The spleen is the major organ of transformation. So it contains in it that dynamic of the possibility of moving from one state to another. So on a physical level, the food and drink that we take in becomes the refined essence of food qi, gu qi, and the foundation of blood. And blood has a strong relationship with the earth element, with the spleen. Spleen provides its foundations. Also its quantity and its quality. And remember that in Chinese medicine, blood is not just the red stuff that flows in our veins. It has a psychological component. So physically, it provides nourishment, but emotionally, it also allows us to feel at ease. It's the energetic of blood is moving softly and smoothly in circles. And it's about how kind we can be to ourselves. So remember, spleen, transformation, and blood. And the other thing that I wanted to just remind you of is that although this is the earth element, we're thinking about grounding and we're thinking about the earth, look at that cooking pot. There's the food cooking away, and look at the steam rising above it. And remember that the spleen energy is an upward movement. It brings things, it sends the gu qi, the food qi, up to join the qi of the chest, and it sends it up to be transformed into blood in the lungs, across to the heart, to be imprinted with the seal of the emperor, final transformation into blood for circulation. So it has this upward movement, and it's said to confer the ability to feel lightness in the body. So that is just a reminder of spleen and earth. And now we're going to experience on the 4 levels the spleen energy. And as we did last week with Cliff, I've got to move my camera here, my laptop. As we did last week with Cliff, we're going to use the Masanaga expressions, because they are a wonderful way of accessing the vibrational quality of the organ and the resonance between the different levels. And the expression for the spleen is gathering food at hand. It's the usual translation. It's about taking in what we need. And it starts with the physical level of gathering food, taking it down to digest it into our bodies. And remember that spleen is this organ of transformation. So our food becomes our muscles, our body, but also our tears, our prayers. It's the organ of transformation. So I want you to just stand, I'm aware how time flies, stand for a moment on the earth and just have a little shake. Actually, let's just shake out our bodies. Shake a leg. Feel the flesh of your body. Have a little shake. Shake off your cardigan. Come back down. Place your feet on the earth. Spread your feet. Imagine you're standing in a garden. Moist lawn under your feet. The grass between your toes. And in front of you, just close your eyes. Let your head float. Let your sacrum sink. In front of you is a garden full of every kind of vegetable you can imagine, growing out of rich soil. And you're hungry. And what can you eat? Notice what happens to your energy as you think about all that delicious food and nourishment in front of you. Remember, the stomach and spleen are on the front of the body. And we're going to, let's just pick some berries, and we're going to make this gesture of gathering. So gather berries, let's say sun-warmed raspberries. Making this gesture, taking it in, nourishing the blood. Come back to standing. Feel the nourishment flooding through your body, allowing you to relax. Feel yourself on the earth, nourished by the earth. Feel that ease, that soft, easy, rounded movement of the blood and the sense of nourishment. On the physical level, your body is getting its needs met, the need to feed. See what that feels like. And you can take your piece of paper and just make a little note for yourself. I won't stop and do a whole drawing, but just a little note for yourself of how it feels. or a word or two, it's always a good idea to just record your energetic experience. Okay, moving on. Now close your eyes, and we're moving up to the emotional level. And I want you to imagine that in front of you is someone very dear to your heart, a child, a parent, a dear animal, someone that you love. And I want you to imagine taking them into your arms and hugging them, a partner, a friend, a dear friend. Make that same gesture of gathering in to meet your needs and feel emotional nourishment. Enjoy that feeling of gathering in to meet your emotional need for nourishment and support. Take a moment, see how that makes you feel. Nourished, emotionally supported. Nice. Make a little note for yourself. Shake out. And now we know that the spleen is associated with the mind and the intellect and ideas. And we're going to switch our intention up now to tune into the mind level. And I want you to imagine that you're taking in fascinating ideas, information. So this time you're gathering in, what do you want to know about? Where is your interest? What would you like to read? What would you like to learn? Gathering ideas, information into the mind, nourishing, meeting your needs on the mind level. Just have to stand for a moment and picture it. You don't need to gesture maybe. And remember that we use all these words for the mind level. We talk about having an appetite for information. We talk about devouring every book on a subject. We talk about chewing over ideas and feel that shared resonance through the levels of the spleen energy. Information, ideas, meeting the needs of the mind level. How does that make you feel? Just make a note for yourself. Okay, now we're tuning in on the spiritual level and the yi, to the yi. So, little shake, take a moment, widen your awareness out now, right out into that boundless, pervasive space, the infinite, remember? Head floating, sacrum sinking. And now we're thinking about, or we're expanding our awareness out now to our intellectual concepts of the divine. What does the divine mean to you? Picture, whether you have a word or an image. Maybe for you it's Allah or Yahweh or Jesus, or maybe it's just heavenly. Doesn't matter, just tuning into concept of the divine, the higher self, the boundless, pervasive, expanded sense of the divine. And for me, a phrase I find helpful is to do with that resonance with the earth. Because for me, this is about feeling at home with the divine, a sense of, feeling at home with the divine. Just see how that makes you feel. Lovely. Make a little record for yourself. Great. Thank you. So, oh, Cliff, I need you now. Anybody else got any pictures? I'm not a good drawer, so here are mine. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
So young, that's my physical.
Oh, yes.
And
oh, that's a really nice cuddling one. Yes. I love your cuddling one. That's great.
And feeling nurtured. And there's my smiley mind full of fascinating information.
I'm worried about your mental level today, Dinah. That looks pretty serious.
Yeah, but look, I'm happy.
Looks like a pineapple.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Dinah, that was such a powerful exercise. It was when you said at home with the divine, I had a really big shift because I was like all up here,
yeah.
And then suddenly I just felt this feeling of being like relaxed.
Yeah. And
I felt the earth below me, like I drew it here, like the earth below me.
Perfect.
Because it was like a nourishing thing.
Yeah. And actually, we could jump onto those. Could you put the slides back? I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah.
Because we've got this image, which is actually from one of your other courses, I think, isn't it?
It's from the vibrational levels course I was talking about.
Yes, exactly. And here you can see exactly that feeling of you've got your roots in the earth. And that, and Nicola, you know, from World of Qigong, you know, the more we can relax and ground down and connect into the earth, the more we can expand up and out to the heavens.
Yeah, in Qigong they say, the further you can go down, the higher you can go up.
Exactly, the very phrase. And so there we've got through the levels, we're talking about, I'm moving my cursor around. We've got digestion and appetite and nourishment on a physical level. Then we've got that sympathy and caring of the earth element. We've got the intellect and ideas and thoughts, and then concepts of the divine, but for me, feeling at home with the divine.
Yeah, that's a really good image.
Oh, great. Lots of things have fallen into place.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great.
Have I got time to do my other little exercise?
Which one was that?
It's just 2 slides. It's really short.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, great. So now, in fact, Cliff, I'll just talk for a moment and then we could flash up the next slide.
Okay.
So what I wanted you to experience is when the spleen, I'm going to move up here, when the spleen isn't working well. Remember I said it confers a feeling of lightness in the body. So it's got this upward energy and it's got this light feeling to it. And remember, you know, from your 5 elements, it's associated with worry and overthinking. And when it can't transform fluids, it is prone to get damp. And when you feel damp, you feel heavy. And that's what I want us to just experience. So I'm just going to make you go through a slightly unpleasant experience for a few moments. So Cliff, if you could give us the next slide. which is the spleen not working very well. It says spleen qi deficiency, any kind of disharmony of the spleen. So I want you to remember or imagine a time when you were worried. So just stand for a moment, just relax and think about feeling worried. Something's going round and round in your mind. And you're tired. And you feel heavy. Heavy legs. Heavy body. Fuzzy head. Dampness clouds the mind as well as making the body weighted. So you feel burdened, so many other people to care for, so many worries, so many things to do and no energy. Feel tired. Notice what happens to your ki. Dear, oh dear, feel that heaviness all through you. And along comes a magic wand, and it's offering you a ticket to travel somewhere you would love to go, somewhere you've always wanted to go. Maybe it's a round the world ticket, but you're feeling like this. Oh dear. So who will feed the cats? And who will go and stay with my dear friend who's not very well? I said I'd go. And what about that manuscript? I said, promise the publisher would be in next week. And who's going to fetch my little granddaughter from her ballet classes if I'm not here? Oh dear, what a burden. Just notice that feeling, that heavy, fuzzy, burdened feeling. And now shake that out quick and give us the other slide, Cliff. Okay, and so this, actually, I'll come back just for a moment to say that this is the translation that I had from Ted Kapchuk, from his Ladder of the Soul, that made such an impression on me in the early 90s. And he translates the yi, rather than intellect or mind, he translates it as consciousness of possibility. It's about our vision, about seeing what is possible, discerning what is possible, being open to ideas, being creative, and open to the flowering of our full human potential. Remember, the spleen is the organ of transformation. So now let's go back and get into that state and take a moment to let your head float, your sacrum sink. Widen your awareness out now to your whole ki field and out through the auric layers and out to connect again with the divine and with your full potential. And feel that lightness. The spleen confers lightness. Feel the upward and outward movement. We've got those roots in the earth. We've got expansion up and out. Feel that lightness of body and lightness of mind. And now you're being offered a ticket to the destination of your dreams. Where would you like to go? And see how that makes you feel. Do you want to go trekking in the Himalayas to the roof of the world? Do you want to snorkel on the Great Barrier Reef? Do you want to go to Machu Picchu and feel the ki of that place? You're open to possibilities to bring your life to its full flowering potential. Woohoo! Yeehaw, as I like to say.
That was absolutely brilliant, Dinah. And do you know what? That, I think more than anything, your presentation has just totally made me much clearer on the yi. And I'm just thinking of clients, because actually there's a lot of that about. I've been getting a lot of stomach and spleen with the clients now with coronavirus and everything, and I hadn't completely clocked it. Yeah, on the spiritual level.
Yeah,
absolutely excellent. Yeah, really, really good. And
it's a joy.
I'm sure we got a lot of fantastic feedback in the chat.
yeah.
Nicola,
I wanted to
a story.
Out of time. Yes, go on, Nicola. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say about the Yi. It was the first time I really got. Oh, I'm getting an echo. The first time I really got working on a spiritual level. I was doing some work at the Terence Higgins Trust in London, and there was people in recovery, and they were very much like Dinah's first thing, burdened, not knowing how to cope. And then it was what they needed is exactly Ted Kaptchuk's words. They needed a consciousness of the possibility of getting well. And in the 10-step, as it was then, 10-step, now it's 12-step program, one of the things you have to do is reach to the higher power, however you name that, whatever it is. It can't just be the universe. And if you accept the universe as a power, the consciousness of possibility is like your ticket around the world. It's like, yes, they could say yes. And that was just such an eye-opener for me back then. Okay, thank you. Sorry, we're already 1 minute over.
No, that's fantastic. It's great to have a practical example of that. And I can think of several clients recently that that I've realized now relate totally directly to the Yi. Now that Dinah's given that wonderful presentation, I'm never going to forget that now, especially that experience of being earthed with that spiritual thing. Yeah. Okay, everyone, we're 1 minute over time. And next week is week 3. Really excited about that. We're going to be doing some work on how we can treat on the spiritual level. We'll find out how you've got on with your diagnosis and answer any questions about it then. And next week is the fire element. It's the Shen.
And are we going to do chakras?
Yeah, we can do whatever. I think, Nicola, you're doing that session, aren't you?
I thought we were doing chakras, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we've got to have a really exciting session in store for you next week. So thanks ever so much for tuning in. And I'm definitely going to put a heart on the chat here.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a great session. Really enjoyed it. Really loved. It's great having so much support and such an active chat. And see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, goodbye.